Five. I'll start drawing in a few minutes here. Um, Today's drawing that we're going to try to do is one that I've already started. I've been working on it for a little while. And so I'll just give you a quick glance at it. So the actual drawing is it reminds me of like Florence or someplace like that. And so it sort of has an interesting look to it as far as trying to hide. Sorry, it has an interesting look to it because of the way it's set up and because of the use of color to create a focal point. And so today's been one of the harder days for me. My stomach's been very upset, and so I've been fighting a sore gut all day long. And so I'll be using the drawing today to try and calm my stomach a little bit. So this is what the drawing looks like that we're going to be working on. And I'm just going to start finishing, like continually adding to it to make it a little bit more definition and a little bit more detail in the people and the dog and so on. And so that's the picture that we'll be working on today. And so feel free to tune in as I start at 6 o'clock. I'll start drawing at that time, and I'll probably draw for 2 hours as I try to create the image that I am trying to achieve. So some people always ask me a simple question, and one of the simpler questions they ask me is, why digital? I drew for many years using traditional styles and taught traditional styles, and so I did learn in the traditional format using paint and using oils, using acrylics in order to achieve my goals when it came to trying to express myself through my art. And so for me, art has always been a hobby. And so I approach it from that point of view. It's not meant to be a method of making money or a method of creating things that everybody go, oh, they're amazing and all that other stuff. For me, it's a personal journey of me calming myself down. So as I said, today has been a hard day. My stomach's been very upset most of the day. And so during this 2 hours, I will calm my stomach down completely just simply by focusing on the drawing. And I'll talk a lot, and I'll talk people through the different steps that I'm going through just to help them realize how I'm creating it. And hopefully people will learn from that on how to create digitally. What I use is an Apple, and it's a fairly big Apple iPad, and so you can see the size of it. It's fairly big. I'll be using that to draw with, and then the other thing I'll be using, which is charging up at the moment, is my Apple Pencil. The Apple Pencil, you plug it in, let it charge up, and then it's probably one of the better tools that I've run across. I've used all sorts of different stylus, everything from my finger, and drew with my finger for a couple of years. I then purchased some wedged nibbed stylus and used the wedge in order to draw with for a couple of years. And then I finally ended up stumbling across this. One of the tablets that I used before had a Wacom back end, which means when I pressed harder, it wasn't the pencil that created the darker lines, it was the actual surface that I was drawing on. And so the way the technology works is it's either the pencil that indicates the fact that you're pressing harder, or it's the actual surface area that you're pressing on. And the touch screens help a little bit when it comes to that, but they can also be detrimental to your ability to create because things break down technological. So originally I had scheduled this on a live event that I had scheduled, and when it tried to connect, it wouldn't do it. So we're just playing, and I will continually try to spend about 2 hours a week drawing online so people can take a look at it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn you around so that you can see the screen and see what I'm drawing, and then we'll work from there. And so just get this all configured properly, and then I'll get a box underneath this screen. So just give me 2 seconds here, people, and I'll get a box underneath the screen, and I'll turn it around so you can actually see the app that I'm using. The app that I'm using, Procreate, is one that a lot of digital artists use. I don't use that one. What I use is I use one called the Autodesk Sketchbook. and I started with that one. So they're very similar. There's not a lot of difference between the two. So the things that I'm explaining here online, you can also apply. The things that I'm explaining here on Autodesk, you can apply them to Procreate, and you'll find that it works just as well. So just give me 2 seconds. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little box underneath my pixel book that I'm using to record with. And so I'll set this up so that you can see mostly just the screen and nothing else, which I think we've done a pretty good job already. Let me just put this down just a little bit. And let's go the other way just a little bit. Okay. So that's the drawing I'm going to be working on. And so I'll talk as I'm drawing, and I need my glasses. Being old, that's an important tool to have. I try to draw without my glasses. I end up with something that ends up very abstract and doesn't look like what I thought it did. And then I put my glasses on and I go, well, that's kind of weird. And I have to fix everything. So, so I'm just going to sit here and work on this drawing. Okay, taking my Apple Pencil off the power cord, plugging the power cord into my tablet. So my tablet is charging, and it'll last for the 2 hours. And now I'm going to start to draw. So you can see that I've got the brownish background, and I'm going to do a little bit with that because I think it's very static and not that interesting to look at. And so I'm going to create a little bit brighter down at the bottom, maybe down at the bottom, and then a little bit darker at the top. And so to do that, I'm going to move into one of my favorite tools, and that's this one here. It's called the flow brush. The flow brush, I'm going to push the opacity down so that I have to really work at getting the darker color there, and then I'm going to get it to be fairly big. And then I'm going to put it in behind actual buildings. So you can see here on the right hand side I have a couple of different layers that I've been working with, and I have the shadow of the dog, I have the shadow of the people, I have the buildings, and then I have the background just in the beige. And so what I'm going to do is in behind the buildings, so you can see this layer here, I'm going to work on this layer, and I'm going just to darken up the sky a little bit at the top, and then make it a little bit using some different browns just to put a little bit more emphasis in it. I still want that kind of creamy color, but I just would like it to be a little bit darker. And so more like that color. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that in behind here just to make it a little bit more interesting to look at. And as I get this color on here, I'm going to go back in, obviously, and get a little bit bigger because it was too small. And it's going to take me too much time. And I'm not patient today. And so I've had a few people ask me, so why do you call yourself the anxious artist? Well, I call myself the anxious artist because I use art to calm my stomach down. I internalize all my stress and all my anxiety all through my stomach. And so I normally have a very upset stomach when I'm having a bad day or when things aren't working the way I'd like them to. And so I found that for me, the best solution for that is to sit down like what I'm doing today. I'm just going to take a couple hours, and I'm just going to talk to myself, draw, and create an image that in the end, I have something to show for the fact that my stomach has been upset all day long. And so you can see how I just darken that up a little bit just to put it in the background. And just for interest's sake, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a tinge of blue in there just to see what it looks like.
I may find out that when I put it on there, I don't like it, and I may take it right back off again. But I think that you can put a hint in there without it being so overpowering that it messes up what you've already drawn. And so you can see how that just sort of makes it appear like it's a sky. And then I'll put just a little bit of a hint of clouds there. And then all of that, I'm just going to soften up using this tool, which is the one that you've seen me use in other drawings. This is called the Smudge Round Bristle Brush. And it's the one that allows me to just soften things that I'm drawing on. So I turn it way up, turn it down, so that it's a bigger brush, and you can see how it just softens everything out and sort of blends it all together. And so then that makes my that part of the drawing look better from my point of view. Now, the other thing that I'm going to use by using this smudge brush, I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix the buildings. So I'm going to start working on the buildings, and I'm going to try to fix some of these areas because they're not really complete. It was just sort of a hint of the way the building should look without actually finishing it. So what I'm going to do is by using that smudge tool, I'm going to soften up some of the lines, and I'm going to create a little bit more of a solid building and less of a really quick sketch. And then I can also add in some of the details in there as well. And so I started to add some of the details here in this wagon, and then I'll see that one building. So I'm working on the building on the right hand side at the moment, and you can see how I just smoothed out the whole surface of it. The window I haven't touched a lot, but I will come back in and redraw the building. This is a 1 point perspective, and you can see all the perspective lines are going back off into the distance. And so when you're drawing these lines, you'll see this line should be fairly parallel to this line, almost parallel, but not completely because it is pointing off to a dot off in the distance. And so the idea on all of these is just to put a little bit more definition in there to make it look a little bit more complete. And then what I can do is I can come in and using a little brush like this, you can put in some different colored bricks. Or some different colored areas on there that you can then highlight or change or do something different with each one of them to make it stand out a little bit better. But you can see how that wall now is a little more solid than it was before I started. And so I'm just going to do that all across the buildings. I'm just going to smooth out the buildings a little bit. There's many times that when I'm working on something like this, I'll get to the point where I'll draw it, and then at the end of it, I'll go, geez, it looked better 2 hours ago. And then I'll go back and start again with the ones that I liked and the ones I didn't like and the reason why and da-da-da-da. And so that's all part of the process. But you can see how I'm just starting to smooth out some of the building to make it a more complete facade of the buildings. And without putting on some really heavy-duty details, I'm just sort of smoothing it out to give it just a little bit more of a solid feel to it. And because the ladies in the foreground who are walking along having a little chat, because they're going to be our focal point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it fairly light around them so it makes it stand out a lot. They should almost jump off the page at you when you look at this picture. And so that's part of what we're trying to do here. So every so often I'll go quiet simply because I'm concentrating on what I'm doing and trying to make it a little bit more. At the moment, it's kind of like a scribbled outline. And so now what I'm trying to do is just fill it in or smooth it out. And then I'll come back in and put in some different highlights and some different aspects of the building itself make it look a little bit more complete, but I go silent every so often because my brain goes elsewhere. And that's why I like the drawing, because it allows me to calm down, makes my brain go elsewhere, and it makes me not worry about anything else in the world. When I was working full time, I used to draw in any meetings that I'd go into. So I have lots of drawings. I spent hours in a meeting drawing, and I can pay attention to what's going on around me and not lose sight of or not miss out on anything that's being said. In fact, I hear more when I'm drawing than when I'm not drawing, because it activates my brain and makes my brain busy, which means then I'm not spending my time off in la la land thinking of something else rather than actually paying attention to what's going on in the meeting. And so the drawing actually makes me a better student. And so I found in school I used to draw all the time, but my teachers never used to really like it because they figured I was always not paying attention. And what I found out later on in life is I actually learn more or remember more when I am drawing. And so if I just sat there, you're going to lose me because I'll be off someplace else thinking about something else, or off la la land doing something else. So now I've got the background a little bit smoother, which I kind of like. It's a little bit better. And now I'm going to go in here and start working on some of the details on these three ladies. So I spent a little bit of time getting the right colors in place, and I sort of have that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to put a little bit more details in the way everything is put together. So it makes a little bit more sense and easier to figure out what I'm actually drawing and how it all fits together, and how, like, that's what I'm drawing now. This is a skirt, and look at these little sticker legs. They look like chicken legs. I'm going to fix those chicken legs. So and you still want it to be slightly abstract, and you don't want tons of detail on it, but you want enough so that you can tell that it is a woman carrying a backpack of some sort over her shoulder. And so just by a minimal amount of detail, one of the things that I learned a long time ago as an artist is your eyes will fill in a lot of stuff. So when you're drawing, your eyes will fill in a lot of stuff and doesn't make any sense. So as you're looking at it, you go, what the hell is that? Well, it'll become realistic as you start looking at it, and you'll be able to see it. So now with the way the lights are shining off this, it makes it hard sometimes to see what I'm actually drawing and what's the drawing and what's something else. And so a lot of reflection coming off these fluorescent lights. Fluorescent lights, for those of you who don't know, have a little bit of a bluish tinge to them. And it's always better if you can to draw in realistic outdoor lighting. And so a lot of the things that I tried to do when I was in my art class and I was teaching high school art students, I tried to put in some filters over top of the lights to allow it to be a little bit more realistic and a little bit more sun. So it is possible to buy what they call solar films, and it's just a film that goes over fluorescent lights that makes it easier to draw. If you can draw by outdoor, that's better, and that's why a lot of people paint on location. And I've done that with my tablet, and those pictures end up a lot different than the ones that I draw indoors like these ones that I'm drawing indoors, I have to work on the colors to fit what I think it would look like if there was bright light shining on them. And so that's part of the challenge, is that when you're working inside and you're working on fluorescent lights, you may have to adapt your color slightly to make it a little bit more realistic. It's hard to see this with the glare. I'm actually just going to move over here. Sorry if I moved the picture. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going to prop this up a little bit with just put something underneath the edge of it so I have less glare from the lights. I'm going to continue to highlight some of this. So now that I've added some of these colors in here, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them away from being lines and make them more of just a shadow. Let's jump off the page and more just hints of shapes and stuff like that. So too big, too wide. So I'm just bringing the size down, and I'm going to increase the opacity a little bit so I can draw a little bit more highlight lines in here. Again, it's just helping some of this stuff stand out a little bit. I'm going to put a little bit more flesh tones in there in the face because it just needs some. And again, I'm just trying to add a little bit more details to this woman that's walking along here, one of the three. And when I finish this one, then I'll go and work on the next one. And so the idea here is just to give a hint of the body shape, not draw it in lots of details, but just give enough so you can tell, okay, that's what it is of the person that's walking along. And so some of the things that you draw, you can see come out, come up with a neat little shape, and your eyes will fill in some of the information so that the person actually makes sense when you're looking at them. Where I don't want to flip the canvas. Stop that. Flip it back. Undo that. Flip it back. Thank you. Trying to figure out how come on the person that I had just drawn, I lost all of the details that I drawn in there, but I didn't. It didn't flip. I made it flip to the other side. Okay, now because I drew that person, I got a little bored with it, and it was becoming a little bit of a task, and I don't want any tasks today. I want this to be nice and relaxing. So I'm going to go back to working on the building a little bit more. So some of the hints that I'm going to start to put in here now are things like, okay, let's pull this down and pull it across, and then it'll give it a little bit more of an edge. And so the same thing here, like this really black line that I have here. Let's make it a little bit more of a detail. No idea what exactly it is. It may be the bottom of a window or the top of a window, but let's just, we're actually going to make this into a window here. So I'm just going to pull this down, pull up the gray until I create that side of the window by pulling the colors in the different directions. And so by darkening up the inside of that, it'll sink it back into the wall a little bit, and then this will become another window. So what I did is I just pulled the darker colors, the black or the dark gray, into creating that into more of a window. And so you see now I've got another window there. And see this line, this side line here is too solid for me. And so I'm just going to pull it into the building a little bit, which means that it'll make it look like either there's bricks on it or it's just wood. But again, all I'm doing is I'm using my smudge tool in order to create that. See, this wagon is looking pretty rough. It's lost some of its shape, so I have to try and fix that and put some more details into it to make it look a little more realistic. And you can see how I came in here with my pencil to help that up, and I actually browned it up. So let's try that again. So let's go here and go down here to the brown area. Let's just work on creating the wheels and more details in there. They make a little bit more sense. I'm just adding some color in there too. Again, just to help some things stand out. And so you can see how by putting that little bit of a brown into that window, it sort of made it sit back a little bit. And this banister here is kind of a cool looking focal point in the picture. Not focal point, but area of interest. the focal point is obviously going to be those three ladies in the front and the dog, simply because they're so brilliant. They've got most of the color, where a lot of the other stuff that isn't colored. So just trying to pull some of this, soften it back into the picture so it doesn't jump off the page so much, but then it just gives an indication of some old pieces of board or just texture on the building itself. And again, as I explained before, a lot of these, as Bob Ross would say, that's a happy little tree, or this becomes this. And so you can always go back and fix things, or anything you don't like, you can always hit undo and it just takes it off. And also, because you're doing it in layers, you can make things disappear. Like if I don't like the shadows, I can take it off and I can put another set of shadows in it afterwards once it gets a little bit more details. I want to just darken this dog a little bit because he's looking pretty shabby for a dog. Pretty dark. So I'm going to go a little bit like fairly dark on the backside. So it looks like he just so it works out a little bit better. I don't like that eyeball. Makes it look like Satan the dog. And I'm just, again, I've gone back to my smudge tool just to soften up the dog a little bit and make him look a little bit more road-worthy. So you see how he was just one solid color before, and then now he's just a little bit better. And now I'm going to go to, I want it to be a darker blue, I think, on this lady's backpack. And so I'm just going to solidify up this backpack a little bit more because it was sort of nondescript. So what I want to do is I want to stand out a little bit more. And just adding a few minor details to it, things hanging off it. And obviously the lady is carrying a whole pile of stuff home from work. So I'm just darkening up some of these areas. And there's really no right or wrong way to do this because we have no idea what she's actually wearing. And we'll just continue to work. So for those of you that are tuning in, because I normally do this at 6 and you're just coming at 6, I'm just working on a drawing that I had started before. I had seen this on the World Wide Web and just thought, oh, that's so cool. And then thought it would be kind of a neat adventure to try and, not adventure, but a neat task to try and see how close I can get it to what I had envisioned or saw on the internet. And then what ends up happening normally is I sort of come up with an idea because of a picture that I saw and said, oh, that's kind of cool. And I like the way the dog and the ladies just stood out. And so I decided that, okay, then what I'll do is I'll try to come in and make it my own. The concept is basically another artist, but the drawing itself is just something that as you work on it, it becomes your own because I'm not as good as the artist who originally did it. And so I try to make it look like something that I might draw. again, as I said earlier, this is one point drawing of buildings, the way they're all pointing down into the one spot off in the distance, and that's how you get the proper angles in place. You have to think about each one of these lines pointing towards that dot in order to make sure everything doesn't look like it's fallen off the side of the building, or it doesn't look right as far as the angle goes. And so your viewpoint forces you the building and the shape of the building to be a certain way because of the fact that everything goes off into that same point. And so someday I'll show you a drawing of just doing one point. It's just if you soften everything out. So I just drew a lot of these lines on the wrong one here, but I'm going to put them together. So I'm going to put the dog. Sorry, I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one and turn everything else off. I do this all the time where I end up drawing on the wrong page. And so I'm going to take this dog and I'm going to also off this. So I want to work on this one and I'm going to take everything off. That's not the dog, but I've already duplicated. So the next one, what I'll do is I'll just delete the dog. And so I have the pictures back to this highlights that I'm doing now should be on the layer that has the building, and the dog should be on the layer with the girls or the women that are walking down the street. So once I have this, so once you erase it, and if you think you missed anything, a good way to see if you missed anything is you just take that page, that one, and you duplicate it, and it'll show you any picture, any spots that are showing up, and there isn't any. That's kind of a really nice dog. The dog turned out really well. And so I'm just going to merge those two together. And then I'm going to take that down to here. And then I'm going to merge it with the ladies. So now I'm going to merge those two together. And so now I have the dog in with the ladies. And you can see this. The lady that I was working on the most on the outside here, I don't like how she has like a glow around her and dark, and so I'm just going to go in and erase some of that darkness around her, just to give her a little bit more of a defined look. And that was because I was using a smudge tool that was really big, and so I didn't recognize I was doing that until afterwards. But okay, it doesn't hurt it. That's why they come up with an eraser tool, which would be a really hard thing to do if you're working in watercolors or acrylic, because then you're just trying to get paint off. And here, I'm just manipulating dolls. One of the strengths of working with digital. So there, she's all a bit cleaner. But then I want to see what will happen if I duplicate that. So you can see how there's still some dots around that side of the edge, and you can see where I have to erase that extra stuff that's there. So you can merge these two together, and then duplicating the image a lot of times just darkens up some of the things and puts more color in. It doubles the amount of color you have on the page, and so it's a great way to fill in space really quickly. Just fill it in as quick as you can, and then go back later on and hit duplicate, and then it comes up with a little bit of darker, like what I did with the dog. And so that lady now with the glow away from around her makes her work very well. And so then let's build them. We're going to bring the buildings back in. So I'm going to take the dog and those guys out, and I want to work on this layer. So I want to be able to see it. So the way I turn off the view is if you look at this layer, there's a little eyeball in the top that now has a line through it. That means it disappeared, and now it's back. And now these are just the lines that I want to add to my my original drawing. And so I'm going to bring them down and put them right into the same space. I'm interested in why that lady has all her layers on top of her. So I'm going to get rid of the dog to begin with, because I've already put him in. So let's take the dog out. Start doggy, erase a new. Let's move it up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to take the dog off. So the dog is disappearing. Take that little line off. Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that whole layer. So there's a layer, I'm going to duplicate it because this material here that I drew is the actual highlights on the lady in the middle. And so now that I've duplicated, I'm going to hide that one. And I'm going to take off this one. So again, all I'm trying to do is fix my layers, because I started to draw over the layers in the wrong spot, and it doesn't allow you to, it doesn't work very well. And so it's just a time consuming thing to make sure I have the layers in the right spots and with the right material. So I end up erasing a whole pile of stuff, which is calming as well, because I'm just moving. And I can already feel my stomach feeling a little better from it earlier today. It was all over the place. Bad stomach today. Don't know what I ate, but it didn't like me. So there. Now that I have that done, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this layer down here to the ladies. And then I'm going to merge it with the ladies below me. Merge. No, undo that. You can't merge it with an image of this and there. Now merge. Merge down. Okay. There, that makes that lady look a little bit better too. Okay, so now what I have left is this layer. So let's open up that layer. Let's make the ladies go away. And I'm going to erase this part off because that's the lady. And I don't want those highlights on the lady. Okay, then I'm going to take that down. This is not part of the thing though. This is. So let's duplicate that again, because there's also a little bit of the lady left in there. So duplicate that. And now I'm going to delete that one. Not delete it, but hide it. And then I'm going to take all of this off, because that little piece there also needs to be added to the ladies group. That's what happens when you don't pay attention to what layer you're painting on. It's the most common mistake I make when it comes to the drawing these, is that I get on the wrong layers, and then it makes it hard to fix things, because you can't hide a layer, you can't work on the individual pieces. But that's another thing that we're drawing digitally, is how you can move things around to be in front and behind. In this tool, if it's in the very top, that means this is the thing that is closest to you, and it will lay over top of everything else. And so I don't want it to be, but it will. And now I'm going to move it down, and I'm just going to merge it with the layer below. And so now I'm going to merge it with that. And so now I've got it in there. Then I just have that empty layer there. So let's open up this one. Get rid of the ladies again. This one I'm going to erase off. That always comes up when you try to draw on a closed layer. I'm not paying attention to what layer I'm drawing on again. So then there, I'm going to take that off. And now this, I'm going to merge with the actual down here and put it in with the buildings. And so the buildings without the ladies in there, it's kind of interesting to look at, but let's merge it. So let's merge it all together. And to see how the foreground, like all of this area in the front, looks awful. And so what I'm going to do in there is go in there, and I'm just going to smudge this. I'm going to get it to be really big. And then I'm just going to smudge it around a little bit to kind of create a little bit different of an effect than what I have at the moment. I don't mind the lighter area running through the middle, but I do want it to look like it is a little bit more flat and less goofy looking. That's an artistic term, goofy looking. So lighter in the middle, I don't have a problem with that. And fading off into the distance is good. And so there's there's a little bit better of a foreground. So if I put the ladies in there, see, then now they look a little bit more like they're on the ground. And so some of that we'll fix in time, because I'll give it a little bit of a texture feel to it. And then once I'm done all of this, then what you're going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to, and I flipped it again. Actually, do I like it better and flipped? I don't mind that either. Let's leave it flipped. Why not? I keep flipping it because of that. You see this little white dot on the bottom? When you click that, it just makes things start to happen. It gives you some other tools. It's a quick access to certain things, and so when it comes up, you have all the different stuff there. And so I try not to use it. In fact, I haven't used it a lot ever. Okay, so we're back to drawing. Let's continue to work on the building here. Let's bring this way down again. And then let's start again. Now, there's a difference between layers. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just layering in different colors. So you can see how I went over with the brown and just put it into opal areas and just sort of doodled it in quickly. Well, now what I'm doing is I'm smudging it in the background, and then I can come back in and put other ones in. And then in time, what you build up is different layers of it, and then you end up with depth being created because you have a whole pile of different layers of the colors. And so you don't want to necessarily have that scribble effect, but you do want to have some of the depth, so the windows look like they sink back a little bit. And that's what I'm trying to achieve here. And so it's kind of a doodle kind of drawing with less detail. Like, I'm not building, like, you can't tell that there's a brick wall or there's this really fine brickwork or something like that. You can't see any of that the way I'm doing this, but you can see the way some of this color smudges together and starts to build some layers and let your eyes fill in there. So what exactly is happening there? And your eyes will fill it in and tell you, well, there's little wedges that hold up the top part of the building. And then your eyes will fill in the missing information that you haven't drawn. And so that's all part of it. So you see the scribble that you have up here? You can't leave something scribbled like that. It looks ridiculous. And so you go over with your smudge tool and you just soften it up a little bit and make it blend into the background. Then you have yourself a little bit of a pattern. And so just continually work on this different stuff to try and make some more details in there. Just pulling the colors around to give it some more details. You see this white spot here? It's too white, so I don't like that. So I'm going to try and pull some of this down. And I might have to go back in there afterwards and put some other color in there, because that white just catches my eye too much, and I don't like that. And these lines over here are too much. They're too wild, and so I'll just soften them down by smudging the crap out of them. Okay, so let's go back into our tool that allows us to put some different colors in there, and let's soften this up. So the opacity I'm going to turn down, and I make this a little larger so that I can actually just add some more depth in some of these buildings and fill in some areas. So you know this area I said here, I said I don't like that. There's too much white showing up there. So what I'm going to do is I'll just start to build some texture by using these different colors. A little bit of a different color. Again, it's a different color than anything I've had on there before, and it will just allow you to add some interest. On the buildings that you'll just then smudge in so it's less definite, but it definitely gives you a feeling of the construction. And maybe having and you see I'm just building up the buildings a little bit so they become a little bit more solid. A little bit more detail to them. And with a little bit more shadow, going into areas that should be more shadowed than others. So you hear the thumping in the background? That's one of the programs that happens in this building. I'm at the Icebox Training Center, and one of the things that functions out of here is there's a bike fitness class that goes on, and so they weren't doing it before, but now they are, and so we have this nice thumping noise in the background, which is okay. Normally I have music playing, but anytime you're streaming something, unless you have the rights to the music, they have a little bit of an issue. YouTube has a little bit of an issue with that, so does the artist, which is rightfully so. They shouldn't use something without paying them to use it. So even if it's just your radio playing in the background, you have to eliminate all of that. But the nice thing is that with this thumping, you can't tell what the name of the song is, because you really can't make out what they're saying either. So you can hear it, but it is not distinct enough to let you know that, oh, well, that's my favorite song. Da, 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 da. It's not, because you have no idea. Okay, so getting tired of working on the buildings. So let's just try something here to see what it looks like. So kind of like that when you duplicate it. I'm going to merge all those together. And you see how it's just gotten a little bit darker. And so that's kind of cool. But the other thing you can do is, if you want, you can go in there and actually take a little bit of focus on there. So even though it's filled in, the darkness that's there, and then you've got it. So let's just show you another little trick here. So let's get rid of everything but the buildings. So I have this the buildings, and then you want it to be a sort of a background for it, right? So I go like this, and I go share. And then what I do is I'm just going to mail it to myself. So let's just mail it. Because what that'll do is it'll allow me to save it. I haven't taken the time to figure out how to save it on any other way. So there it is. So then I'm just going to mail it to myself. So it'll send itself off. And then what I do is I open it up in here, take it out into the image, edit the image. And then what it will do, so now I just have to wait for it to show up in my mail. And this is the wrong one, so I need to search the mail. It's not the wrong mailbox. I want to go into this mailbox. So here's a mailbox, no subject. So here it is. I want to take this and I want to just click on it. I say add to the photos. Then what it'll do is it'll be in my photos. So if you go over here and you open up your photos, it'll be right here. So there it is. Now, if I edit that, I can go in there and I can say auto edit, and then it will change it to what it thinks is the best idea. But I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to give it a different feel. So these are all the different variations that you can use in the background. So I kind of like that, the cool look. There's just a dramatic one. There's a little bit more brown, but I think the dramatic cool is probably the best one, right? So I can go done. And then I'm going to edit it one more time. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to change exposure. I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. And I go with the brilliance, a little bit more brilliant. So then done. So then this is my new drawing. And so what I'm going to do now is now I'm going to save it. So what it'll do is it'll go now down there. And so now I can actually bring it back into my drawing. So I'm going back into Autodesk and I'm going to bring in that layer. Now that I've adjusted it based on the colors, rather than actually spending all the time coloring it through and all that other stuff, I'm just going to hide that one. And then I'm going to bring in the new one. So I go here and I go down and find there it is right here. So there's my new one, and I get it to the size of the background. Let me get this a little smaller so I can see what's going on. Can't see if it fits or not. So go done, squeeze it down. Okay, so that fit very nicely, just like that. Okay, and then I can leave that one hidden, bring this out, and there's my girls and the dog on the new one. Now, do I like that better or do I like the other one better? Not sure yet. I don't mind this one, but I need to fix some of these rooftops. Like, what is this crap? It's very nice. Okay, so let's continue to work on one of these ladies here. So I'm going to just hide this background, and because I want to work on these a little bit more, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to. Now again, I'm using just my smudging tool again, and I'm just trying to soften and take out some of this extra crap I got floating around the outside edges. So basically, I'm just smudging them away. So cool the way all of this just sort of blends together. So you just soften things up, put them all together, put on the colors, and then smudge it until you get the shapes and the color and the objects that you wanted to as you were drawing it. So you fill in areas that don't have the color where you want it. In the end, you end up with these two talking to each other, and then let's just do a little bit of work on this lady. So she's got a little bit of a darker skin, and she has some black around the outside of her hood that she's wearing. And then her bag is off to the side here, so her bag, What we're going to do is pull her bag up this way. And you can see there's this green, and there's a little bit of a green on the second girl. And it sort of ties them to get together a little bit. And I don't like the black line around the outside of things, so what I try to do is I just try to smudge the colors into the black line and then soften edges up like that. There you go. So again, just trying to take away those black lines around the outside when I was sketching it out. Stupid black lines there. Whoever wears clothes with a black line around it just doesn't make sense, does it? So as I duplicated that, it brought up a whole pile of stuff that I had missed when I erased it. So you can see the hint in the background there. So what I have to do is I have to take that off. So I'm going to go in here with the eraser. I'm going to take this stuff off. If I can find it, maybe it's not on that layer. What other layers do I have up and running? That layer. Delete that layer. It's not that one. Hidden, 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 hidden. Oh, I see. So let me merge these two. No, close that. I don't want to merge all of them. Merge those two, and now I can erase it. Yeah. So it is on those. It is on those two layers. Now there's only one layer because I merged the two of them, but it does allow you to clean up some of the. Some of the little things that show up when you actually duplicate it. So. And we just continue to erase this. Get all that extra grayness out of there. And I don't know why they are still there after you erase the whole area, but it's almost like there's a little bit of a shadow image that's left behind, and so you want to go in and just take it off. Okay, now both these shadows, I don't like both these shadows, so I'm going to delete them, and I'll show you how we can do them again in a different style. And so we're going to take those off. So this is what we have so far. And it's starting to come together. But what I want to do is, you know how I put the little bit of blue in the sky up here? What I want to do is I want to make this look wet in behind the dog and the people. And so I'm going to take that out here, and then I'm going to work with some lighter blue. And what I want to do is I want to work very big. So where's the settings of this? I want the size to be very big and the opacity to be very low. And then what I want to do is I just want to come in and put in almost like it's wet. So you can see how it's going on, but you can hardly see it. But it is actually going on. And you can see the way it's starting to fill in some of the color. And then I'm going to take a smudge tool. I'm just going to move it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then that again gives you the feeling of reflections or water or something on the ground rather than just the bricks. So, okay, let's put them back in there. See, that's a bit better. You see how this area here is too white? So let's go back in there and let's take a color from close by. So I want to have that color and I want to fill all of this in. Because it was too light. Turn up the opacity a little bit. Okay, now let's work on some of the reflections. So we want this to be reflected down below. And so the way to do that is to duplicate this whole thing. So duplicate it. And then what you do is you go up to that little cross at the top. So I'll do that again. So it's a little cross. You see there's a bucket on one side. There's a little cross that points to the four directions like north, south, east, west. And then there's looks like an envelope with an arrow attached to it. You want to do the cross. And then what you're going to do is you're going to flip that upside down. And so now what I have is an upside version of the dog and the people. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to move it right down below. And then what ends up happening is this becomes the reflection of the people. And so you can put it up a little bit higher. So it's right in the right spot, like that. And then put this stuff on it, and then you can actually pull it and make it longer and narrower. And pull it so that it's actually touching in the right spots. Then you go done. And then you're going to take the one off. And then this one here, you're going to take your smudge tool, put the opacity very low, not the opacity, excuse me, the flow very low. And then you're just going to take this and you're going to smudge this out. So you see how it starts to look a little bit like a reflection as you start to pull the colors in different directions. So you want the right colors and the right animal or the right legs to be in the right spot, but you don't want it to be a solid image. And so you pull it across like that. And then you'll find out that, okay, so maybe my flow wasn't strong enough or my strength wasn't strong enough. So let's turn that up a little bit. And then you can pull it a little bit more. And you can, again, you don't want to totally destroy it, but you can get the idea that it's a reflection. And so you can see how I'm just pulling this off to the side, pulling. And you end up with, turn the flow up a little bit more, turn the strength way down, turn the flow even more, and then let's try it again. And you can see how the distinction of it starts to disappear, but you still have that reflection there. And then you put that people back. So there's the people back, and then you can see they sort of reflect of them standing there, and the reflections are down underneath them. And some of the reflections you're going to have to get rid of, right? So these reflections that are really high, you don't want them there. So you're going to take these reflections out in here. I keep seeing a line across the top here, and I don't like that. I don't know how to get rid of it there. I got rid of it. Okay. So then, now I like the way this is looking, but I want to put some highlights on there, a little bit lighter of a color. And so I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go almost to a whitey, and then I'm going to zoom right in, and I'm going to put some highlights on the different on them. So in here, let's work on pencil. Working with your light source is always important to make sure that you see where your light is. Now, obviously, the light is right between the two buildings and is shining through there. So you want to make sure that you can see that. You can put in all the highlights as it hits the women, and that'll allow it to be a little bit easier to look at. If you don't make it too dark, like as long as you keep the colors fairly light, it'll show the light showing through, and that's what we're trying to do. Let's make the light shine through. So you just emphasize some of the different details on the drawing and things that you would like to emphasize. I think the dog needs a few highlights on him as well. I don't like that light of the dark around the dog, so we'll fix that too in time. And so you just soften it up, pull the color in different directions. You can see the way that worked. So the dog, again, the dog has those black lines around the outside. I don't like that. And remember I said that I want to get rid of the drawing lines. There's two ways you can do that. One is you just smudge them in like what I've done there, or you put the sketch on a different layer. And then what ends up happening is when you're done, you just take off the sketch. And that fixes it. So the wagon looked like it was disappearing just a little bit. And so what I did is I just put it back in a little bit more. And you can also see that when I brought in the new background, I took away a lot of the wagon. So you see how the wagon has two wheels on that side? Now you only have one wheel. And that's okay, because I like the building a little bit closer like that. It sort of gives it a neat feel to it. So then you can see how the drawing's starting to come together as far as it's getting close to being at the point where I'm happy with it. There'll be a few adjustments I'll do offline and on my other computer, but you can spend a lot of time now just playing and just softening up some of these things and making parts of the building and parts of the rooftops to work better than what they do. And like, what the heck is this thing? I think this is more like a pole than it is an actual building part. So I don't even know if I would keep it or whether I'd take it off. So I'm all welded there. Just let people try and figure out what the heck it is. I try to remove all the sharp edges. So you see how where's a good example of that? See this at the very top above these two windows on the right hand side. You can see that it looks like a little V. And so what you do is you just extend that along, and it sort of makes it part of the picture rather than something that looks like it was drawn on afterwards. And so it just adds a little bit and takes all the sharp edges off all the different building parts. And you don't want to be lined, so some of these buildings, like any of these windows that have a real sharp line to them, like these ones here on the left-hand side, it looks like the shutter lines. Just smudge them out a little bit, and then you can still have hints of them, but they don't have to be so dramatically bold. So again, just adding some details to the different aspects of it to make it stand out. Make it look very nice. Very nice. And the reflections turned out really nice this time. I like it better than the last set of reflections I had on there. So we got it there. And then the other ones, the other thing that you may want to do is just with your pencil, you go really thin with your pencil. So right down small. Make sure the opacity is really high, and then just draw a few lines across the page at the very top, and you put it right into the reflections. And those don't, like, they don't have to be anything spectacular or anything like that. And this thing is bothering me more and more sitting up here in the sky. So I think what I'll do is I'll go into that layer. I'll take more and more of it away until it's just, get back up here. Let's move this a little bit bigger. Move this smudge really up there. And then let's take some of this weight right in there and get rid of that thing completely. Because I don't like it. I don't mind that. But I don't like the way it was sticking way out before. So just take it away. There. One of the great things about digital drawing. Don't like something? Take it away. Don't like that? Take it away. Okay, so while I'm doing, I'm just gonna create some reflections in here as well. Just because I think it's necessary. I think we almost have a finished painting. I think we almost have a finished painting. And then so once I get down to a certain stage, then what I would do is I'd go in here with a really light pencil, and I'd go really light. And then there I have myself my painting. I go gallery, save this as a copy. And there I have a finished painting. So let's turn this around for a minute. But sorry, I was still there. I just
Okay, so that's my drawing for today. I know it's a little bit shorter. This was only like an hour and a half, and I normally draw for 2 hours, but my stomach has calmed down, and so this did what it was supposed to do, and that's calm my stomach down. And so I hope you had learned and you had a chance to come in and look and have a chance to see what you can do digitally. For those of you that are artists and have the ability to draw and paint with watercolors and paint with oils and paint with acrylics, all of the skills that you learned on there are perfectly transferable to the digital world, and it's worth attempting the digital world. One of the things that I noticed with some artists who do a lot of drawing, a lot of painting, and do big paintings, they'll use the computer in order to set up their painting. And so you can use the skill of being able to sketch something really fast on like the picture I just did, and sketch that all out, get it all aligned and set up the way you think it should go, and then you can go in there afterwards and adjust it and fix it and turn it into something different, completely different. And so that's a very cool tool to use and fun to use. And so I'm hoping you learned something, and I hope you get yourself a tablet and Apple Pencil and Sketchbook Pro or Procreate and try to draw digitally. If you get a chance, go on and take a look at my Draw Digitally YouTube channel. Take a look. I've got drawings of all sorts of different types on there, so take a look, and there may be something there that you'll find of interest. So again, thank you very much for watching Drawing Digitally, and I'm the Anxious Artist.